Hey, I'm Jesse. Let's have a devotion. This is Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. It's going to sound familiar even if this is the first time you've ever heard from the Bible. Therefore, whatever you want others to do for you, do also the same for them. For this is the law and the prophets. It's nicknamed as the Golden Rule. And this teaching is perfected in Jesus' iteration. But it didn't originate in this moment. There are other versions that came before. In fact, there's another version that's found within Hinduism. There's a similar concept found within Buddhism. But the way that Jesus frames it is completely different. Jesus' wording, therefore, whatever you want others to do for you, do also the same for them. For this is the law and the prophets. It's a beautiful case for the moral argument for God, even showing how this sort of moral ethic that holds sway is even articulated within pagan faiths does show that morality is a real thing, that we're aware of it, even if we're not aware of the gospel of Jesus Christ. There was a version of it that was taught by this famed rabbi named Hillel. If you go to the local college, local big university, not only will you hopefully find a BCM, a Baptist Collegiate Ministry, but you'll also find a Hillel Student Center. That's the Jewish Student Center. And it's named for this rabbi, Hillel. Hillel had a protege named Gamaliel, whom you see in the book of Acts. And then Gamaliel had a student you might know, Saul of Tarsus, who would later go by his more Roman-friendly name of Paul, author of much of the New Testament. But back to Hillel, he had his own version of the Golden Rule, as it's called, and it was articulated like this: what is hateful to yourself, do not do to someone else. Did you see how it's sort of the Golden Rule as Christians know it, but not quite? It's actually a negative. It's actually a thou shalt not. Like it's don't do what you consider hateful. Right? Like what is hateful to yourself, do not do to someone else. So it's sort of this darkly version, this pseudo-converse of the Golden Rule. The way that Jesus articulates it is totally revolutionary. Instead, what Jesus tells us to do is actually a call to action. It is a command. And that's unique among articulations of the Golden Rule and permutations of this very thought. Therefore, whatever you want others to do for you, do also the same for them. Now, his follow-up statement, for this is the law and the prophets, also in some translations rendered, for this sums up the law and the prophets. Other translations have also said, love others as you love yourself. This is all building up to the crucifixion. He's showing our need for the law of God, and he's summarizing the law and the prophets. This is going to come up again in Matthew chapter 22, this command to love one another as God has loved us. Love your neighbor as yourself. So stay tuned. We'll get to chapter 22. We'll talk more about this, and this will come up again. But this is all the summation of the law and the prophets. He's saying this in the Sermon on the Mount. The Pharisees are there. They were stringent adherents to the letter of the law. And Jesus just gave a summation of the spirit of the law and of the prophets, for that matter. When he says the law, he's talking about Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Sometimes that would also be referred to Moses, or the law of Moses. And see Romans chapter 10. And then when he talks about the prophets, think Ezekiel through Malachi. These are all the prophets, the major prophets, the minor prophets. And all of them are summed up in this right here. This is the essential summation of them all. Richard Dawkins once made much fanfare about having finally arrived at a moral axiom by which atheists could abide, and he ended up inadvertently quoting Jesus. And so he took the tweet down, but not before I took a screenshot of it. It's so funny. It's just true. It's just true. Even atheists will come to the same kind of ethic. Now, this doesn't mean treat others how you are treated. There are some pagan permutations that might lead to that application, but there's no room for that within Jesus' iteration of this truth, this perfection of this truth, if you will. Rather, it tells us to do. It tells us to treat. It shows us how to love. It is a call to a positive action. And that action is treat others the way you want to be treated. There's no room in this perfection of the teaching for revenge. There's zero recourse for when you're mistreated. There is only a flipping of the script, a cessation of the legacy of mistreatment, and the enactment of a new legacy. It's not retaliate. Rather, we see this turn the other cheek. When you are mistreated, you respond with grace. By the way, again, that is not a call to abdicate self-defense. Rather, it's you respond to mistreatment with graciousness, and now you treat others the way you would want to be treated instead. Peyton Manning's dad is an example of this kind of repentance and a turning over a new leaf and starting of a new legacy. His own father was in a dark place, was unaffectionate, showed no love and no interest in his kids, and ended his own life. And so when he raised his boys, he was very attentive, very loving, always present. He wanted to find a new legacy for fatherhood in his family. I'd say he did that. Same is true of my dad, that he redefined what fatherhood and legacy is in our name, in our family legacy and what that is. I am a good father to my kids largely because my dad was a good dad to me. And my dad was a better dad to me than his dad was to him. It's a beautiful thing. Treat others the way that you want to be treated. There's no calling here for vengeance. There's no calling here for self-vindication. Rather, there is simply a call to do unto others as you would have them do to you. Do not do to others as they have done to you. Rather, do this. Stay tuned for more on this when we get to chapter 22.